Our meeting to order. First item we have is bill introductions. I'd like to introduce RS 2619, which is the salary fix from last year. It also includes language on the Wichita State and KU University and an adjustment to the bill program. Without objection, accept it. Senator McGinn.
When you say the salary fix, is this the legislative pay or is this something else?
No, the legislative pay.
Oh, okay.
No, not the legislators. State raises, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Not legislators, okay.
Well, you called it a fix. That's like,
Yeah.
okay, that's like a 30-year-old fix.
Okay. Any other bills? Seeing none, we'll move on. Next item we have is a budget report out. So we're going to start with corrections and public safety. Senator Fagg.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The agency is the Kansas Commission. Is that the first one on the list?
Yes,
Commission
Kansas
on
Commission.
Peace Officer Standards and Training. Everybody's got a copy of that. The agency estimate, the agency requests a revised estimate of $1.1 million, all from special revenue funds and expenditures and 6 FTE positions for FY 2024. This is an increase of $13,049 or 1.2% above the approved amount. This is for approved increases of salaries and wages for FY 2024. The FTE positions remain the same. The governor concurs with the agency revised estimate in FY 2024, and the subcommittee concurred with the governor's recommendation for FY 2024. I stand for questions.
Any questions? Seeing none, please proceed.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion for both of them when we get ready. Okay. So we move on to FY 2025. The agency requests $1 million, all from special revenue funds and expenditures, and 6 FTE positions for FY 2025. This is a decrease of $65,408 or 5.9%. below the revised estimate of FY 2024. The decrease is a capital outlay due to no additional expenditures for safety and security, which was appropriated for FY 2024. The FTE position remains the same. The governor concurs with the agency request for FY 2025, and the subcommittee concurs with the governor's recommendation for FY 2025. I stand for questions.
Questions on 24 or 25? Seeing none, you may make your motion.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move that the committee concur with the governor's recommendation on the Kansas Commission's Peace Officer Standards and Training budget for FY 2024 and 2025.
Any questions? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Next, we'll have the Kansas Sentencing Commission. Senator Fagg.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The agency requests a revised estimate of $14.7 million, including $14.7 million SGF in FY 2024. This is an all funds decrease of $4,472 or less than 0.1%, and SGF increase of $11,493 or 0.1% for the approved amount for FY 2024. The governor's recommendation recommends a revised estimate of $12.3 million, including $12.3 million SGF in FY 2024. This is a decrease of $2.4 million or 16.2% of all funds and $2.4 million or 16.3% SGF from the agency revised estimate for FY 2024. There was a correction to the agency's budget of $2,627 and a lapse of $2.4 million from the SB 123 Substance Abuse Treatment Program. The subcommittee concurs with the governor's recommendation in FY 2024. I stand for questions.
Questions? Seeing none, please proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The agency requests $17 million all funds, including $16.9 million SGF. This is an increase of $2.2 million or 15.3% above the FY 2024 revised request. The increase is due to three enhancements requests of $2.3 million SGF minus the enhancements. The FY 2025 request is $78,198 SGF, below the FY 2024 revised request. The governor recommends $12.3 million, including $12.2 million SGF. This is an all funds decrease of $4.7 million, or 27.8%, and SGF decrease of $4.7 million, or 27.8% below the agency's request for FY 2024. The reductions are mainly due to corrections in the agency's budget request and a lapse of the SB 123 Substance Abuse Program, a treatment program, for FY 2025. The subcommittee concurs with the governor's recommendation for FY 2025. I stand for questions.
Questions on 24 or 25? Seeing none, you may make your motion.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move that the committee concur with the governor's recommendation on the Kansas Sentencing Commission budget for FY 2024 and 2025.
You heard the motion. All in favor? Oh, sorry. Oh, second from Senator Pittman. Any other questions? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. God bless you. Next, we'll have the Adjutant General's Department. Senator Fagan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The agency submits a revised estimate of $169.8 million, including $34.6 million SGF in expenditures for FY 2024. This is an all funds increase of $31 million, or 23%, including an SGF increase of $1.1 million, or 3.2% above the FY 2024 approved amount. The increase is attributable to the agency's three enhancements requests totaling $8.6 million, including $1.1 million SGF. These enhancements requests include increased disaster relief payments coverage for the pay plan shortfall and website hosting services. The increase is all attributable to the addition of $22.6 million, all from Federal American Rescue Plan Act funds. In capital improvements for remodeling of the State Defense Building, which houses the Kansas Division of Emergency Management and the State Emergency Operations Center. The revised estimate includes 296.6 FTE positions, which is an increase of 3 FTE positions above the FY 2024 approved number. The position increase includes 8.5 FTE positions at the Nickel Hall Barracks in Salina and 2 FTE positions for the Star-Based Youth Program, which is an offset by a decrease of 7.5 FTE positions in the Emergency Management and Homeland Security and the Infrastructure Program. The governor concurs with the agency's revised estimate in FY 2024, and the subcommittee concurs with the governor's recommendation for FY 2024. So I stand for questions.
Questions on 2024? Seeing none, please proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The agency request of $92.8 million included $13 million SGF in expenditures for FY 2025. This is an all funds decrease of $77 million, or 45.3%, including an SGF decrease of $21 million, or 62.5%, below the FY 2024 revised estimate. The funds decrease is primarily attributable to the net decrease of federal funds for federally declared disaster and capital improvement expenditures for remodel of the SDB, all from federal ARPA funds. The SGF decrease is primarily attributed to the decrease in capital improvement expenditures for construction of the new National Guard Armory in Hayes. The decrease is partially offset by the agency's 5 enhancement requests totaling $8.9 million, including $1.4 million SGF. These enhancement requests include increased disaster relief payments of 2.0 FTE positions at the Kansas Intelligence Fusion Center, and 1 FTE administrator position at the 190th Civil Engineering Squadron at Forbes Field Air National Guard Base. Website hosting services, and the SGF money for the Office of Emergency Communications to offset elimination of the transfer from the Highway Fund. The request includes 299.6 FTE positions, which is an increase of 3 FTE positions above the FY 2024 revised number. The position increase is attributable to the agency's enhancement request. The governor recommends a $92.7 million, including $12.9 million SGF for FY 2025. This is a decrease of $87,000, all SGF, or 0.1% below the agency's FY 2025 request. The decrease is due to the governor not recommending the agency's enhancements request of $127,000 FGF for the Office of Emergency Communications, offset by the governor's recommendation to modify the agency's enhancement request of $220,000 SGF for 2.0 FTE positions in the KIFC by adding $40,000 FGF for operational expenses associated with the positions. The recommendation includes 299.6 FTE positions, which is unchanged from the agency's request. The subcommittee concurred with the governor's recommendation for FY 2025. And with that, Mr. Chairman, I stand for questions.
Questions on 24 or 25? Seeing none, you may make your motion.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move that the committee concur with the governor's recommendation on the Adjutant General's Department budget for FY 2024 and 2025.
You've heard the motion. Any questions? Seconded by Senator Pittman. Any questions? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. That closes our budget reports for today. I'm going to go back to bill introductions. Senator Clays.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Is my mic working? Thanks. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have a bill introduction for the approval of purchases out of state by the KU Hospital Authority. It is RS 2643.
Without objection, we'll accept that. Okay, well, we're going to move back to the agenda. At this time, we will get an update on the new veterans home. Brigadier General William Turner, U.S. Army retired, Kansas Commission on Veterans Affairs Office. General, welcome committee.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. Thank you for inviting me to have this opportunity to share a little bit about an update on where we're at with the development of our new veterans home that's slated to be built in the vicinity of the Cole Murray O'Neill Veterans Medical Center here in Topeka. If you will, please, if you move to the first slide, it gives you a little bit of a description of the discussion of the topics we'll talk about today. I have a timeline that'll help facilitate discussions on the budget and where we're at in terms of kind of progressing through the process of applying for the federal grant and our site selection, and then move into kind of the project funding and the way ahead for it. So if you move to the next slide, it has timeline 1 of 2, please. So just to orient you to the slide, in the bottom left-hand corner shows kind of where this was introduced first back in May of 21. And there's the decision that was made to do the research and the development of a new veterans home to serve veterans here, primarily oriented or postured here in the northeast quadrant of Kansas. We have about 190,000 veterans in the state of Kansas, and approximately somewhere around 105,000 through our latest research are shown to reside in the northeast quadrant of Kansas. And that's an area that we kind of talk about going from roughly just east of Salina up to Nebraska, down to I-70 and across over to Missouri. If you follow along the slide here, when we did the first, we had a selection of an architect and engineering firm back in July of 21, and we immediately going into the initial concept design period there, where they provided an initial concept of what they were looking at to follow the small home structure that's approved by the VEA for veterans homes. We've submitted our initial application for our grant in April. That was the application in April of 22, and then the final application went in August of 22. Again, this was based on the initial approval from the legislature was for $10.5 million of a 35% commitment toward the project. At the time, it was estimated to be probably somewhere around $30 million back in 2021, but that was for a smaller scale structure. We think based on the demand and what we see right now in the Northeast quadrant, that it was expanded to 72 beds. We got approval from the legislature for the additional, I think it's $6.7 million in 22 then to move forward there. So that was all in bonds then. That got, the totality of that was $17.2 million. That represented the 35% state commitment. And then we went out to seek through the approval process with the grant program for the other 65%. That was in bonds at that time. In 20, we were, if you go to the, let me see if it's on the next slide or here where we were, well, here at the top right of that slide in the arrow, it's talking about in June of 23 when the priority funding groups were released from the federal VA. And at that time, we were placed on priority group 8 of the priority funding groups. And what that does is that does establish us as being eligible for the federal funds when the federal funds are available, but we were just lower in priority. And in the subsequent legislative cycle, if you go to the next page in 2 of 2, we were approved to have the $17.2 million received in SIBF. So we had that money in a separate line item account. We were continuing to move forward with our schematic design. If you look in the lower right-hand side of that arrow, you'll see where we've been focused largely on the interior design of the building. We meet weekly in most cases here, with few exceptions. The meetings tend to go quite lengthy as we go through the detailed process of looking at the interior design, focus mostly on like the community center area, administrative portions, and then it expands out to the individual beds and the individual rooms for those veterans. We resubmitted our application, or we seeking to revalidate it with actually having that cash on hand now in our SIBF account. And we have been reasonably assured that will move forward up to priority group 1. But again, it's going to be pending availability of federal funds to see where we will fall on that priority group there, and then when those funds might be made available. If you go to the next slide, this is kind of a pictorial here just to show you where it's at here in Topeka. On the left-hand side, you can see the footprint for the Colmary O'Neill VA Medical Center. And then off to the right is where you'll see in the kind of the northeast, the upper right-hand portion there is the proposed layout of the new veterans home and where it will be in that footprint. So it's a little bit canted there, about down from a 180. It's not square, or it's not directly square on that corner either, but through different studies, we determined that was probably the best location for it and the best posturing of that facility to maximize the available parking, the road networks to be able to bring in and out various items of supplies that we may need. If you go to the next, this is kind of another pictorial of it that just kind of shows you a little bit better how it looks. So again, it's a small house design, 72 beds. Each one of those legs that you see going out is 18 beds. On either side, the 2 arms each represent a neighborhood. So you kind of maximize the amount of resources that we have to optimize that. So you have nurse stations and med aids and nurse aides that are largely located at the node where the 2 arms come together. And I'll go into that a little bit more later, but that showing you where they are in the center there is the community center and the admin offices. You go to the next slide, please. This is a little bit of a discussion of the project funding and what I've already described to you, that the 35% funding is already in place from the state. And again, I appreciate very much having the ability to have that cash on hand and being able to continue with the schematic design. Where we're at today right now is we just received the final schematic design from our A&E team, and we have provided them feedback. And we'll go back and forth a little bit on that to refine some of that, and then we'll go into design development phase. The expectation is they should be able to complete with the design by probably late fall of next year. And then again, it's just pending, the availability of the federal funding to be able to break ground and move forward. And at that time, we anticipate it's probably going to be, we're saying, it's a 15 to 18 month build timeline to construct this project. The next slide, this offers a little bit of it's probably still difficult to see, but again, just starting at the center portion there is a community center, there is a theater room, there's a library, and the right-hand side of that green structure there to the back is your laundry, your kitchen facilities. It's a dining, eating area for those that want to get up and leave their respective housing areas in order to be able to walk down and go to eat in a communal area there. To the left-hand side is the pharmaceutical areas, the therapy areas, and some of the other administrative portions, social services and what have you. In the very center of that portion there that kind of goes horizontally between the two passageways, that's where your superintendent, your clinical director, your director of nursing, that's where they all reside there, that can kind of run the operations from there. And then again, off to on either of the legs are the households in the respective neighborhoods. One of the households right now is designated to be a memory unit. So we'll be able to handle people there that have kind of the mild cases of dementia that we're dealing with. And we're seeing a lot more of that with some of the kind of the quote unquote invisible wounds that a lot of our veterans are dealing with these days, and the PTSD and things of that nature. Again, I can't emphasize to you enough, I guess, the importance of this and having this opportunity to provide this type of quality of life for our veterans. I mean, right now, our facilities that we rely on out in Dodge and Winfield, are nearing capacity, quite frankly. They've increased in their census by about 15% in the last 2 years. We just, in the last 3 months, we started to see a wait list of our facility down at Winfield. We no longer have that right now, but at one time we had built up in the December, November timeframe. We had about 3 or 4 folks that were waiting to get in there just based on our ability to serve them there at that facility. The one out at Dodge is probably about 90% filled for long-term care, less or so for the domiciliary folks that are in cottages and the other buildings there. But again, we're talking about facilities in the case of Dodge, obviously, that was started out in the late 1800s, and there's some newer buildings out there, but relying on these other structures out there and using them are largely repurposed for our reasons there. And then the one obviously is a former state hospital down at Winfield, and just the way it's constructed, this offers us a much better opportunity to optimize the resources that will be made available to us. If you go to the next slide, this is meant more just to show you an example of the level of work, what we're doing, and the level of detail that we're going into. So when we had our A&E team come in, and we partnered with the federal VA team there at Comrie O'Neill to tape out a room. This is actually to scale what we would see the room with the door, and be able to, using some of the things that we had there, like a bed and a wheelchair and what have you, just to making sure that we are actually going to have this thing so it's functional for our folks to move people around and to operate within that room. So again, a lot of great work is going forward with this, and we're continuing to move forward with it. If you go to the last slide, is the way ahead. Again, we're going to reconcile the feedback that we provided on the schematic design with the A&E team. We have received approval to move forward with a construction manager at risk. That happened in November. They're going to narrow the field of applicants to that in February with the OFPM board. And then we'll look at hiring one probably in early March. We will be able to hire a CMR, and that allows us to have somebody on board with us to help us with the cost estimates and continue to monitor that as we move forward, and working in close conjunction with the architects so we don't go too far down the road with a design that may be untenable. We'll continue to monitor the transfer of the property right now. That is contingent on the federal funding being made available to us. So that is still in the appropriations bill that way, and we'll continue to move that forward. Again, we're looking forward to the construction grant list being published probably in the April timeframe, and we do expect to be on priority group 1 at that time, but it's just a matter of how far down. We're competing with a lot of other probably lesser projects, if you will, but they're more maybe lesser value, but there's a number of projects out there that are focused on life, safety, and things of that nature that the VA will give priority to over a new build construction. And then the last piece is just to kind of we are beginning the analysis right now of what the future staffing requirements are and continue to start the coordination with some local, with the Board of Nursing and local institutions here to start to set the stage or set the foundation for what we're going to need to hire. We're probably looking roughly 95 to 100 people probably as the employee staff. Not all of that is critical care providers. That's housekeepers, maintenance, the dietitians, and those folks that are supporting that as well. So we'll begin to look at that, and we'll be introducing that into our requirements here in the next year or so. In the best case right now, we're probably looking at starting being able to, probably breaking ground in, I want to say it's like March of 25, something like that would probably be is a rough target if we are approved for the funding and the funding is made available. And that's all I have at this time, sir, and pending any questions.
Thank you. I guess a question would be is if you're successful in getting the funding and approvals, groundbreaking on the 25th of March, how long, you said about 18 months roughly to finish a process?
Yes, sir. We believe it's going to be about, conservatively speaking, I'm saying probably about 18 months to build the project. Yes, sir.
And when will you start taking applications for services?
To occupy it?
Right.
Sir? I don't have an answer right now, sir, it's definitive. But what we are looking at doing is the potential that we could possibly open up certain portions of it as it becomes available. So if we're able to build like the community center and have those core functions in place, then as we have a household or a neighborhood come online, the possibility of being able to provide some services there.
And do you anticipate you'll be able to fill it, rather quickly? I mean, do we know how many folks are waiting for these type services?
So we have, like I said, it's about 105,000 veterans probably that reside in the northeast quadrant of the state. And that, so obviously you have a high population concentration of veterans in the Johnson, Wyandotte, Leavenworth area, here in Shawnee, and then out west toward Junction City, Manhattan, and Salina kind of included in that. The numbers in terms of those that are disabled, I mean, it's kind of hard to predict who might need to come in, but I think based on that, yes, sir, we believe we'll be able to fill it. Right now at Winfield and Dodge, approximately 75 to 80% of their residents come between 100 and 150 mile radius around there. So it's not as though they're drawing from other areas right now to come in there. And we are looking at the possibility, I mean, this is being built with the consideration of being able to add 2 households onto this, on the kind of the back side of the building. So as we've gone through the design process, we're trying to build that potential in for, future expansion if it shows that we have that demand.
Thank you. Other questions? Senator Pittman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thanks for the update. It's really exciting to go from priority 8 potentially to priority 1. I know it's not out there until it's out there, but that's fantastic to get on top of that list. I've got some dumb questions, like I usually do. I don't even know, but in the facility like this, I think about veterans, and I've got a typical image in my head, but I also think about quality of life issues as my folks look at other kind of assisted living folk areas, and my friends' families do, about some of the things that they look for. And I don't see anything that's recreational so much, and maybe you can address that. Like, and I use pickleball as an example. So a lot of folks, a lot of retirees that like to play up into their 90s. Is there any kind of activity like that? And do you see the population being able to take advantage of even like courts or some kind of a whirlpool sauna or anything like that, those kind of amenities that build up the quality of life so it's not just a typical nursing home feel?
Yes, sir. So our existing homes right now, I mean, they have tremendous programs that are recreational and activities oriented, where they bring people out to various events and they invite people in to do various things with them. As far as the physical nature, a lot of these things, it's fairly limited. I would tell you that maybe 30%, 25 or 30% of the residents are ambulatory and able to move around of that nature to do this. Many of these folks are are disabled to a point where they have challenges to be able to get around. Now, that said, we do have some of the lesser physically intensive type things there with pool tables and things like that that are scheduled in an activities area. And then they have other events that they schedule and do there as well.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Any other questions? Senator Petty?
It seems that in order to move from level A to level 1, it needs a lot of help from our federal delegation. So can you just share how invested they are?
Oh, just, I mean, as far as, I'm sorry, ma'am.
So I'm just thinking about our federal
Oh, yes, ma'am.
representation. It seems that if we're going to move forward to that level, even though I know this having cash on hand, you shared that with the Public Health and Welfare Committee today. So I would suspect that our Washington delegation has to be very much invested in this.
They are, yes, ma'am. And I provide updates primarily to Senator Moran's office, Congressman Mann, and on occasion, also to Senator Davids. We've been given constant information on this. I know when they go to have engagements over at the VA, particularly Senator Moran, that they're calling us and asking us for talking points or just kind of where we're at with this to make sure that they can help reinforce it for us.
Senator Fagan?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you for your presentation. I was wondering with the, like in Winfield, which I got a tour of that, very interesting and do a great job. The people that actually come into the facility, are they coming from home or are they coming from a nursing home? Do you keep track of that kind of thing? Just wondering where they come from when this opens up.
Yes, sir. So we do, I would tell you a large majority of them are probably coming from other care providers that they are under right now. I think, but due to various income challenges and things that they are facing, where it makes it very agreeable for them to come over to be there with us. We also receive some recommendations of homeless veterans. So as homeless veterans are coming in to get care, and they're recommended over to us to be able to come reside in our home as well. But we do have some that come from homes that are, again, there are folks that are dealing with tremendous challenges trying to take care of them at home, and they're just unable to do that now. And so they're looking for an opportunity to have a place for them to come stay. And again, it's we offer our services probably for about 1/3 of the cost of what it would, to go into a commercial, if you will, local community care facility of our kind of what our capabilities are. And then also, I mean, there's the added benefit of the kind of the camaraderie that they get there from being with other veterans. If you see these folks, to have that opportunity to share and to be there with other veterans is a big deal to these folks.
Any other questions? Seeing none, Brigadier General, thank you for being here today. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, sir.
Committee, that concludes our work for today. I would mention that give us about 7 minutes. We'll start deliberating on the State Library Subcommittee. With that, we're adjourned.